Silent Guest, Chapter 10. The Missing Frame. The disappearance of Elliot Brooks's camera frightened Lucy more than the body. She hated herself slightly for thinking it, because Elliot lay only a few yards away beneath the gray afternoon sky. His life ended with such brutal efficiency that even Henry Shaw had abandoned his usual caution when describing what had happened. The blow to Elliot's head had not been accidental. It had not been ambiguous. Someone had struck him hard enough to kill him, then returned after Lucy and Oliver left the scene and removed the one object most likely to reveal what Elliot had discovered. That meant the second murder had not been a panic. It had been followed by a decision, a calculated one. Oliver stood beside the low stone wall above the cliffs, staring towards Ravensmere House as though he might somehow force the building to surrender the person responsible. Wind pushed at his coat and stirred the wet grass around Elliot's body, while the sea below rolled heavily against the rocks in long, dark swells. 6 minutes, he said. Lucy looked towards him. What? We were gone for roughly 6 minutes. You timed it? I checked my watch when we entered the house. His jaw tightened. 6 minutes for someone to leave the group, reach the chapel path, find the camera, remove it, and return without being noticed. Lucy looked back towards the house. From this distance, Ravensmere appeared almost peaceful. Tall windows reflected the changing light. Smoke rose steadily from 2 chimneys. Nothing about it suggested that 2 men had died there within 24 hours. Could anyone make it in 6 minutes? Oliver did not answer immediately. Yes. The word made her stomach tighten. Using the main path? No. The servant's route. Partly. He pointed towards the western side of the house. There's a kitchen exit near the lower terrace. From there, the old gardener's path cuts behind the hedge and reaches the chapel in under 3 minutes, if you move quickly. Lucy remembered Neil explaining the house's service passages. So someone who knew the grounds, or someone who had studied them. Andrew. Possibly. Neil. Yes. Elliot had been photographing outside. Oliver nodded. Marcus wandered around trying to find a signal. Henry had been through the conservatory. Evelyn sketched the gardens. Helen has been here long enough to walk them herself. Lucy exhaled. So everyone. More or less. That answer was becoming familiar. Every promising clue seemed to point towards one person until context widened it again. Lucy looked down at Elliot. His right hand had relaxed after Oliver removed the scrap of paper. The numbers he had written remained sealed inside another envelope in Oliver's pocket. 3, 7, 14, M. Whatever they meant had been important enough for Elliot to write them down moments before his death. Do you think he knew he was in danger? Oliver looked towards the body. No. You're sure? If he did, I don't think he would have walked out here alone. Unless he was meeting someone he trusted. Oliver's eyes lifted. That possibility had not been spoken aloud yet. Lucy continued. He saw something in the restored photograph. He said he needed the hard drive. Then he left his room without it, meaning someone interrupted him. Or persuaded him to come outside. Oliver nodded slowly. Someone he didn't consider dangerous. The thought changed Elliot's final minutes. He had not fled. He had followed, or agreed, or trusted. Lucy stared towards the chapel ruins. Then he knew his killer. Oliver gave a small, grim nod. Almost certainly. They returned to Ravensmere House without discussing the conclusion further. The others had remained in the entrance hall under Andrew's uneasy supervision. Nobody had attempted conversation. Evelyn sat on the lower staircase with both arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. Marcus paced near the windows. Henry stood beside the drawing room door, his medical bag still in one hand. Helen had taken Arthur's old chair near the fireplace, but appeared uncomfortable occupying it, while Neil remained standing beneath Amelia's portrait. When Oliver entered alone with Lucy, every face turned towards them. Marcus spoke first. The camera? Oliver shook his head. Gone. Marcus stopped pacing. What do you mean gone? It was beside Elliot when we found him. And now? It isn't. Henry frowned. You were only away a few minutes. Yes? Silence followed. Everyone understood the implication. Andrew looked around the room as though seeing the group differently for the first time. One of us left. Oliver closed the front door. One of you may have. Marcus immediately bristled. May? I'm not going to invent certainty because everyone is frightened. Someone took the camera. Yes. Who else is on the island? Neil answered quietly. No one that should be. The word should unsettled Lucy. Oliver heard it too. What does that mean? Neil looked towards him. The caretaker's cottage is empty. Mr. Calder left for the mainland Thursday morning. Mr. Calder? Samuel Calder. He maintains the grounds when Arthur isn't here. Lucy noticed Marcus look up at the surname. No relation, Neil added before he could ask. Marcus gave a humorless smile. Of course not. Oliver continued. Anyone else with access to the island? Not without crossing the causeway or coming by boat. Could someone have? Neil considered. Possible, not likely. How would we know? We wouldn't. For the first time since Arthur's death, the possibility of an outsider entered the room. Lucy disliked how quickly everyone seemed to welcome it. Marcus exhaled. Well, there we are. Helen looked towards him. There we are where? Perhaps the killer isn't one of us. Helen's expression remained cool. Convenient. Marcus's frustration returned. You really do enjoy assuming the worst of me. No. Helen adjusted one cuff. I enjoy recognizing relief when it arrives before evidence. Marcus stared at her. Lucy almost intervened, but Oliver did first. We consider every possibility. He looked around the room. But nobody leaves this house. Marcus laughed sharply. Again? Especially now. Oliver's voice was harder than Lucy had heard it before. Arthur's death may have been planned. Elliot's was not. That quietened everyone. He realized something, Oliver continued. The killer knew he had realized it, or believed he had. That makes the situation more dangerous, not less. Evelyn finally looked up. What did he realize? We don't know. Then how do we protect ourselves? Oliver paused. We stay together. No one argued this time. They moved into the drawing room because nobody wanted to remain beneath Amelia's portrait. Neil lit the fire despite the mildness of the afternoon. Perhaps he simply needed something practical to do. Flames caught slowly beneath the grate, restoring a little warmth to the room without touching the unease. Oliver placed Elliot's scrap of paper on the central table inside its clear sleeve. 3, 7, 14. Beneath the numbers sat the solitary letter, M. Everyone stared at it. Andrew leaned closer. Could be a date. Lucy looked towards him. 3rd of July, 2014? Or 7th of March? Marcus shook his head. Elliot was British. That does narrow an ambiguous date wonderfully. Helen almost smiled. Only almost. Henry studied the paper. Medication? Marcus looked at him. What medication has a dosage of 3, 7, and 14? I didn't say dosage. Then what? Intervals. Oliver raised a hand. Let's not generate 20 theories in 30 seconds. Lucy remained focused on the numbers. Elliot had been looking at a photograph. That mattered. What if they refer to the image? Oliver looked towards her. How? Coordinates. Too few digits. Image references. Andrew frowned. Frames. The word landed quietly. Lucy turned towards him. What did you say? Frames. Andrew sat forward. If Elliot restored old photographs, he might catalog versions numerically. Lucy felt something click. 3, 7, 14. Oliver's attention sharpened. 3 images? Or 3 frames from film? Andrew looked towards the empty space where Elliot usually kept his camera. An M could be a file label. Lucy thought of Elliot's hard drive lying open in his bedroom. The drive. Oliver stood immediately. We should have secured it. They moved as a group this time. Nobody remained behind. Elliot's bedroom looked exactly as Lucy remembered it, except the open balcony door had been closed by the wind. The hard-shell case remained on the bed. The hard drive sat inside. Oliver checked the room before allowing anyone farther in. No one touches anything. Marcus sighed. You should have that embroidered somewhere. Oliver ignored him. He examined the hard drive, a black portable unit with no obvious damage. Password protected? Henry asked. Probably. Andrew looked towards the notebook Elliot had left beside the bed. Maybe he wrote passwords down. Evelyn shook her head. He didn't strike me as someone who would. Lucy thought about Elliot's personality. Precise, private, suspicious of certainty, not careless. No, she said, he wouldn't. Oliver checked the computer bag. A laptop was missing. Did anyone see him with one? Evelyn nodded. Yesterday evening, in the morning room. Where is it now? Nobody knew. Marcus looked around. Camera gone, laptop gone. Oliver's expression darkened. The killer may already have everything Elliot discovered. Except this. Lucy held up the sealed scrap without removing it from Oliver's hand. 3, 7, 14. M. The killer had missed it. That mattered. Lucy walked slowly around the room, careful not to touch anything. Elliot's belongings were arranged with the same visual precision that seemed to govern everything he did. Memory cards had been placed in labeled cases. Charging cables were coiled neatly. A notebook lay beside the lamp, closed. She looked towards Oliver. Can we read that? Without touching. Andrew leaned over carefully. The notebook had no title. Lucy used the edge of a clean sheet of paper to lift the cover. Most pages contained technical notes, exposure settings, lens numbers, color corrections, file names. Then Helen noticed something. There, a page near the center contained a list. M03, M07, M14. Lucy felt her pulse jump. 3, 7, 14. Oliver leaned closer. The letter M, exactly. Below the file references, Elliot had written a single sentence. Same man, different years. Nobody spoke. Andrew looked stunned. He found someone appearing in 3 separate photographs. Lucy nodded slowly. Across different dates. Oliver pointed. M03, M07, M14. 3 images, or 3 recovered frames. Marcus looked towards the closed door, and the same man appears in all of them. Henry's voice was quiet. The man following Amelia? Possibly. Helen looked towards Evelyn. Would you recognize him from the sketch? Evelyn paled. If the photographs are clear enough. Oliver's expression hardened. But we don't have the camera. Andrew looked towards the hard drive. We may have the files. Everyone turned. The drive suddenly mattered more than the missing camera. Oliver looked towards Elliot's notebook again. Could M be a folder name? Lucy nodded. Marrow. The word came almost automatically. Andrew stared at her. The foundation. Emmer Marrow. 3 photographs. 7. 14. Same man, different years. Oliver looked towards Neil. Does Arthur have a computer we can use? In the study. Oliver hesitated. The study remained a crime scene. Another option occurred to Lucy. Andrew's laptop. He looked surprised. I brought one. Can it connect to the drive? Yes. Oliver thought for a moment, then nodded. Get it. Andrew left with Neil. Nobody followed because he was visible almost the entire way down the corridor. Lucy remained beside Elliot's bed. She looked at the open case. Something bothered her. One compartment was empty, not recently emptied by force. Deliberately empty. What usually goes here? Evelyn joined her. Looks like another drive. Oliver looked down. A backup. Lucy nodded. Elliot restored images professionally. Would he really keep only one copy? Marcus leaned against the wardrobe. He was paranoid enough. Careful, Lucy corrected. Oliver looked around the room. So there may be another drive. Somewhere. Or the killer already took it. The possibility sat uneasily beside the missing laptop and camera. Elliot had left behind one drive, perhaps because it was not the important one. Andrew returned with the laptop 10 minutes later. They gathered in the drawing room rather than remaining inside Elliot's bedroom. Oliver placed the hard drive beside the computer while Andrew connected the cable. The screen recognized the device immediately. Password required. Marcus groaned. Wonderful. Andrew looked at Elliot's notebook. Maybe M03. No, Lucy said. What? He wouldn't use evidence labels as passwords. Oliver nodded. Agreed. They tried nothing at random. After 3 incorrect attempts, many encrypted systems could lock. Henry leaned back. We may have to wait for forensic officers. Marcus looked towards the windows. At this rate, they'll arrive sometime next month. Neil had been unusually quiet. Lucy noticed him staring towards Amelia's portrait. What? He looked at her. Elliot asked me something yesterday. Oliver turned immediately. When? After dinner. What? He wanted to know Amelia's favorite flower. Lucy stared. Why? I assumed conversation. What did you say? Cornflowers. The flower Arthur had shown Lucy inside Amelia's book. Blue petals. Lucy felt the answer before she spoke. Try cornflower. Andrew typed it. Rejected. Neil frowned. Maybe plural. Cornflowers. Rejected. Oliver shook his head. No more guesses. But Lucy was thinking. Elliot had asked not simply about flowers. Amelia's habit mattered. Pressed flowers inside books. Arthur's quote, the portrait, cornflowers. Elliot restored Arthur's photographs. Perhaps Arthur had provided a naming system. What did Arthur call Amelia? Lucy asked. Neil looked confused. What do you mean? A nickname. Neil's expression softened. Millie. Lucy looked towards Andrew. He typed, Millie. The screen changed. Access granted. No one moved. Marcus whispered something under his breath. Andrew opened the drive. Dozens of folders appeared. Restoration jobs, dates, client references. Then one folder near the bottom. Oliver leaned closer. Open it! Inside were 14 image files, numbered. M01 through M14. Lucy felt her heartbeat increase. 3. Andrew opened M03. A grainy photograph filled the screen. The Calder Hotel exterior at night. Several people stood near the entrance. 7. M07. A charity event. The Marrow Foundation banner hung behind a crowd. Lucy recognized Robert K. from an archive photograph. 14. Andrew clicked. The final image opened. Everyone became silent. It had been taken outside a courthouse. Amelia stood near the bottom of the steps, partially turned away from the camera. Across the street stood a man, dark hair, glasses, ordinary coat, watching her. Evelyn made a small sound. That's him. Oliver looked towards her. The sketch? Yes. You're certain? Her eyes never left the screen. Yes. Andrew zoomed carefully. The man's face became clearer. Not perfect, but clear enough. Lucy did not recognize him. Neither did Marcus. Henry stared, then looked away. Lucy saw it. Henry? He remained silent. Everyone turned. Oliver's voice became very quiet. You know him. Henry closed his eyes. Yes. Lucy felt dread settle through her. Who is he? Henry looked towards the image again. His face had become gray. That man is not Edward Bell. We know. He isn't Robert K. Henry, Oliver's patience disappeared. Who is he? Henry swallowed. He was a doctor. Lucy stared. At your hospital? Yes. Name. Henry hesitated, then finally spoke. Dr. Martin Vale. The room remained quiet. Andrew frowned. Why would a doctor be following Amelia? Henry shook his head. I don't know. Lucy watched him. That isn't all. Henry looked towards her. You recognized him immediately. Yes. And you're frightened. Henry's jaw tightened. Oliver waited. What happened to Martin Vale? Henry took a long breath. He disappeared. When? 10 years ago. Lucy felt cold. How close to Amelia's death? Henry's answer came barely above a whisper. 2 days afterwards. The room changed completely. Arthur's old investigation no longer ended with Amelia. Someone connected to her had vanished almost immediately afterwards. Lucy stared at the photograph. Then something else caught her eye. A reflection in the courthouse doors behind Amelia. Small, distorted, barely visible. Another person standing inside the building, watching both Amelia and Vale. Andrew. He leaned closer. What? Zoom the doors. He did. The pixels blurred. A figure emerged, no face, only clothing. Dark suit, one hand against the glass. On that hand, a ring. Large, distinctive. Lucy stared at it. She had seen that ring before. Recently, very recently. She looked slowly around the room. One person had stopped breathing normally. Helen Sinclair. Lucy's eyes dropped towards Helen's right hand. Empty. No ring. But the pale indentation around one finger was unmistakable. Helen followed Lucy's gaze. Her face changed, and Lucy understood. The photograph had not only captured the man following Amelia, it had captured someone else watching him. Helen whispered before anyone accused her. I can explain. Lucy stared at her. For the first time since Arthur's death, she was certain of one thing. They were finally looking at a lie that had survived all 10 years. For several seconds, nobody asked Helen Sinclair to explain. The drawing room seemed to contract around the photograph on Andrew's laptop. Martin Vale remained frozen outside the courthouse, unaware that a camera had captured him watching Amelia Pembroke 10 years earlier. Behind Amelia, distorted by glass and distance, another figure stood inside the building with one hand resting against the door. The face was useless. The body little more than shadow. Yet the ring was clear enough to matter, and the pale band around Helen's finger suggested she already understood exactly what Lucy had noticed. Oliver was the first to break the silence. You told us you could explain. Helen nodded. I can. Then explain. Marcus remained near the fireplace, but even he had abandoned the restless commentary that usually accompanied uncomfortable revelations. Henry sat opposite the laptop, his expression unreadable. Evelyn had moved closer to Andrew, while Neil remained beside the doorway, looking as though each new discovery about Amelia took something further from him. Helen looked at the image. That photograph was taken on the morning Amelia was supposed to give evidence. Lucy frowned. You were watching her. Yes. And Martin Vale? A pause. Yes. Oliver's expression hardened. You knew he was there. I saw him. You recognized him? Not then. Henry looked sharply towards her. You knew Martin. Helen turned. I had met him twice. At the foundation? No. At formal dinners connected to the courts. He had given expert evidence in several cases. Henry's face tightened. And you didn't recognize him outside the courthouse? He was across the street, partially obscured, and I had no reason to be looking for him. Lucy nodded towards the screen. You were looking directly at him. I was looking at Amelia. The answer came immediately. Helen's gaze remained fixed upon the photograph. She had been pacing outside for nearly 20 minutes. I could see she was frightened. Why didn't you go to her? Helen gave Lucy a weary look. Because I was the judge responsible for the hearing in which she was due to appear. Judges do not walk outside and privately reassure witnesses. Even frightened ones? Especially frightened ones. There was no pride in the answer, only the remnants of a professional rule Helen had obeyed for so long that she still seemed capable of defending it while regretting everything it had cost. What happened next? Oliver asked. Robert Kay arrived. Lucy felt the name tighten every face in the room. Where? Inside the courthouse. He asked to speak privately. And that was when he told you Amelia's testimony would compromise an undercover operation. Yes. Was Vale mentioned? No. Edward Bell? No. The Calder Hotel? No. Oliver frowned. What exactly did Kay tell you? Helen considered the question. That Amelia had unknowingly identified a protected source. He said her evidence contained material relating to an ongoing operation, and that disclosure could place lives at risk. Did he provide documentation? Yes. Oliver looked surprised. What documentation? A written application supported by information purportedly from a specialist police unit. Purportedly. Helen's mouth tightened. I believed it was genuine. Do you still? No. That answer changed something. Lucy leaned forward. When did you start doubting it? 3 days later. When Amelia died. Yes. Helen looked towards the laptop. I contacted Kay. What did he say? That Amelia's death was unrelated. How did she die? Andrew asked. The question was so fundamental that Lucy was startled by how rarely they had discussed it directly. Helen glanced towards Neil. He looked away. A road accident, Helen said. Lucy stared at her. Arthur said she died suddenly. He rarely discussed the details. What happened? Helen folded her hands. Her car left the road outside Edinburgh shortly after midnight. It went through a barrier and down an embankment. She died at the scene. Was anyone else involved? No vehicle was identified. Was there evidence another vehicle had been there? Tire marks. Oliver's attention sharpened. Whose? They were never matched. Witnesses? One driver reported seeing headlights close behind Amelia's car several minutes earlier. Lucy felt the old death becoming less accidental with every sentence. And the official conclusion? Loss of control on a wet road. Marcus gave a bitter laugh. Convenient. Helen did not challenge him. Yes. Lucy looked towards Neil. You knew? Neil nodded. Arthur never believed it was an accident. From the beginning? Not immediately. Neil's voice was low. For the first few months, he barely functioned. Later, he started asking questions. About the tire marks? About everything. Neil looked towards Amelia's portrait beyond the doorway. Arthur said grief made him useless when Amelia needed him most. By the time he began looking properly, records had disappeared, people had forgotten things, and everyone wanted him to move on. Lucy thought of the archive room. 10 years of boxes, 10 years of refusing to move on. Oliver returned his attention to Helen. You contacted Kay after Amelia died. Yes. And? He told me not to confuse tragedy with conspiracy. Did you accept that? For a while. For how long? Helen looked towards the pale mark around her finger. Until Martin Vale disappeared. Henry leaned forward. How did you know about that? I received a telephone call. From whom? Helen hesitated. Amelia. Nobody moved. Lucy stared at her. Amelia called you before she died? Yes. When? The evening after the hearing. You never told us. No. What did she say? Helen looked towards Lucy. She apologized. The answer seemed so unexpected that Lucy thought she had misunderstood. For what? For what she'd said outside court. She told me she knew I thought I was protecting someone. Helen's voice softened. Then she said, You're not protecting the witness, you're protecting the reason he needs protecting. Oliver wrote the sentence down. Did you understand? No. Did she mention Vale? Not by name. Bell? No. Kay? Helen shook her head. She said only that there were 3 men and that one of them had begun to panic. Andrew looked towards a laptop. 3 men. Helen nodded. She told me she had photographs connecting them. Lucy glanced at the folder containing 14 restored images. Did she tell you where? No. What happened to the call? I asked her to come back to court the following morning. I told her I would reconsider the application privately if she could provide evidence that Kay's information was false. Helen's expression tightened. She laughed. Why? She said she wasn't sure there would be a following morning. The room became utterly still. Lucy felt anger rise. And you let her leave? Helen's gaze snapped towards her. I telephoned the police. Kay? No, a local station. What happened? They sent officers to her flat. And? She wasn't there. Helen swallowed. She died the following night. The distinction mattered. Amelia had known she was in danger. She had tried to warn Helen, and then she had died on a wet road with another vehicle perhaps following close behind. What about Vale? Oliver asked. 2 days after Amelia's death, I tried to find out who she might have meant by the 3 men. I started with people connected to the hearing. That led me to Martin Vale. How? He had provided medical consultancy to the Marrow Foundation. Henry looked down. Helen continued. I telephoned the hospital. I was told he had taken emergency leave. And then? He never returned. Henry spoke quietly. His flat was empty. Everyone looked towards him. You checked? Lucy asked. Yes. When? A week later. You said he disappeared. He did. Henry removed his glasses. Martin had been behaving strangely for months, missing meetings, canceling clinics. He told me he was considering leaving medicine. Why? He wouldn't say. Henry looked toward the image. When he vanished after Amelia died, I assumed he had finally done it. Without collecting his belongings? He took some. Family. Divorced. No children. Police investigation? A missing person report was eventually opened. And? Nothing. Lucy looked back at the photograph. Maybe he didn't disappear voluntarily. Nobody answered. They were all thinking it. 2 days after Amelia's death, a man who had been watching her vanished. 10 years later, Arthur Pembroke gathered everyone connected to those events beneath one roof. Then Arthur died. Then Elliot restored photographs that revealed Martin Vale. And Elliot died too. The pattern no longer felt historical. It felt unfinished. Oliver closed his notebook. Helen, where is the ring? The question surprised Lucy. Helen looked down at her hand. In my room. Why aren't you wearing it? I stopped wearing it years ago. Yet the mark is fresh. Helen's expression changed. Oliver had noticed what Lucy had missed. A mark like that doesn't remain for years. Helen said nothing. Helen, she looked towards him. I wore it yesterday. Lucy felt suspicion return instantly. Why remove it? Helen's answer was barely audible. Because I recognized it in the photograph. Marcus stared. You took it off after we found Elliot's files. Yes. That is possibly the most suspicious thing anyone has done since we arrived. I know. Why? Because I was frightened. Helen looked toward the screen. I knew exactly how it would look. Oliver's voice became colder. And instead of telling us, you concealed the thing connecting you to the photograph. Yes. Helen did not attempt to defend the choice. Where is it now? In the drawer beside my bed. Oliver looked towards Lucy. We get it together. Helen stood. I'll show you. No. Oliver shook his head. You stay here. For the first time, Helen looked offended. Then she seemed to understand. Very well. Lucy followed Oliver upstairs. Neither spoke until they reached Helen's room. The drawer beside the bed was empty. Lucy stared at it. Oliver checked the second drawer. Nothing. Helen said beside the bed. She did. They searched only what was necessary. No ring. Lucy felt the familiar sensation of the mystery shifting beneath her again. Someone took it. Oliver looked towards the open bedroom door. Or Helen lied. A noise sounded somewhere along the corridor. Both turned. A door closed. Not slammed. Closed. Oliver stepped into the hallway. Empty. He moved toward the sound. Lucy followed. Arthur's study stood at the far end. Locked. The music room lay beyond the gallery. Also locked. Then Lucy noticed something on the carpet. A blue petal. Flattened. Old. exactly like the one she had found outside Arthur's study. She stopped. Oliver. He looked down. Neither touched it. A second petal lay several feet farther along, then another. A trail. Lucy felt her skin prickle. That's deliberate. Yes. Someone wants us to follow it. Oliver looked toward the servants' staircase. The final visible petal rested beside the paneled door. He opened it carefully. The narrow staircase descended into shadow. Another blue petal lay on the first step. Lucy shook her head. This is too obvious. I agree. So we don't follow? Oliver looked down the staircase. We follow carefully. They descended. The petals continued to the lower service corridor. One near the old bellboard, another beside the pantry, then nothing. Lucy stared along the passage. Where did they go? Oliver crouched beside the last flower fragment. This one is crushed. Stepped on? Possibly. The corridor split ahead. One direction led towards the kitchen, the other towards the old music room entrance and cellar. Lucy heard voices from the drawing room beyond the wall. Everyone should still be there. Oliver. He looked towards her. What if this isn't leading us somewhere? What do you mean? What if it was leading us away? His expression changed. They ran. The drawing room door stood open. Everyone appeared to be where they had left them. Marcus near the fireplace, Andrew beside the laptop, Evelyn on the sofa, Neil beside the windows, Henry in the armchair. Helen standing now. She looked towards Oliver immediately. Well? The ring isn't there. Helen went pale. What? The drawer was empty. No! She moved towards the door. Oliver stopped her. Stay here. I put it there. When? This morning. Before or after Lucy saw someone outside Arthur's study? Helen froze. Before. Lucy looked around. Where's the envelope? Neil frowned. What envelope? The one from behind Amelia's portrait, the sketch. Everyone turned toward the table beneath the portrait. Empty. Oliver crossed the entrance hall. The envelope was gone. So was Evelyn's sketch. Andrew stood. It was there. When did you last see it? Before you went upstairs. Marcus looked around the room. No one left. Lucy stared at him. Someone must have... No. Marcus shook his head. I was standing by the door. Every second? He hesitated. No. Oliver looked towards Neil. The servants' entrance. Neil's face changed. There's another door into the drawing room. Everyone turned. Neil crossed towards a bookcase beside the fireplace and pressed his hand against a narrow section of paneling. A concealed door opened. Behind it lay the service corridor, the same corridor Lucy and Oliver had just followed. Someone could have moved through Ravensmere House almost invisibly. Marcus stared. You knew about that? I work here. Who else knows? Neil looked around. Anyone who has studied the original plans? Andrew immediately stiffened. Everyone noticed. He looked almost offended. Oh, come on. You had the plans, Marcus said, and I'm a historian. You knew about the servants' passages. I knew they existed. Did you know about that door? Andrew hesitated. Lucy closed her eyes briefly. Andrew. Yes. Marcus laughed. Brilliant. I saw it on the plan yesterday. And didn't mention it. I didn't think it mattered. Oliver's expression hardened. Everything matters now. Andrew looked genuinely distressed. I didn't take the sketch. Did you take Helen's ring? No. Did you leave the flowers? No. Did you take Elliot's camera? No. Marcus folded his arms. Quite a collection of no's. Andrew turned angrily. And what exactly have you contributed besides discovering your family paid off a suspected blackmailer? Marcus stepped forward. Oliver moved between them. Enough. His voice filled the room. For once, everyone obeyed. Lucy looked at the hidden doorway. The killer had known the passages. They had removed Helen's ring. They had removed Amelia's sketch. They had left flowers to lure Lucy and Oliver away. Or perhaps someone wanted them to believe all of those things had been done by one person. That possibility disturbed her even more. She looked towards the laptop. "Where are Elliot's files?" Andrew pointed. "Still there." Lucy crossed towards the screen. The folder remained open. 14 images, MO1 through M14. Something felt wrong. She counted. 14. Then remembered Elliot's note. Same man, different years, M03, M07, M14. They had assumed he meant Martin Vale, but M03 had shown the Calder Hotel, M07 had shown the Marrow Foundation event, M14 had shown Vale outside the courthouse. Lucy opened M03. Edward Bell stood beside the car, another man partly obscured. She enlarged him. Glasses, long face, dark coat, then M07. Robert Kay stood among the charity guests. Behind him, near the edge of the frame, another man. Lucy zoomed. Glasses, long face, dark hair, Martin Vale. Her pulse quickened. Elliot had been right. Same man, different years. But something else was different. In MO3, Vale was not watching Edward Bell. He was receiving something from him, a small envelope. Lucy opened M07 again. Vale stood behind Robert Kay. His hand rested near Kay's shoulder. They knew each other, not casually, closely. "Oliver," he joined her. She showed him. Henry slowly rose from his chair. "No." Lucy looked towards him. "You recognize this event." Henry stared at M07. "Yes." "What was it?" "A Marrow fundraiser." "Were you there?" Henry nodded. "Somewhere." Andrew searched the image. More than 30 people stood in the hall. Then Evelyn pointed. "There." Henry appeared at the far right, younger, smiling, standing beside Martin Vale. Lucy felt the connections close tighter. Bell, Vale, Kay, Henry, all linked through Marrow. Marcus through the Calder Hotel, Helen through the hearing, Evelyn through Amelia's sketch. Everyone seemed connected. Everyone except... Lucy stopped. "Neil." He looked towards her. "What? How did Arthur know you?" The question seemed to surprise him. "I worked for him." "Before Amelia died?" "Yes." "How long?" 15 years. "So you knew Amelia well?" "Of course. We've talked about everyone else's relationship with her." Lucy looked directly at him. "Not yours." Neil's expression changed. Only slightly. But after days of watching people lie, Lucy recognized the moment immediately. Oliver did too. "Mr. Fraser?" Neil looked towards Amelia's portrait. "I don't know what you want me to say." "The truth would be useful." Marcus almost laughed, but thought better of it. Lucy continued. "Amelia hid flowers in books. You knew which flower was her favorite. You knew about the service passages. You knew Arthur's routines. You knew about the missing journals." "Yes." "You were one of the last people to see Arthur alive." "Yes. And somehow we've treated you as part of the house rather than part of the story." Neil stared at her. There was hurt in his face, then something else, resignation. "You're right." The room became quiet. Neil walked towards Amelia's portrait. He looked up at her. "When Amelia was 17, she ran away from home." Lucy frowned. "Why?" "She and Arthur had argued." "About?" "Her mother." Andrew looked confused. "Arthur's wife?" Neil nodded. "Amelia believed Arthur had lied about why her mother left." Lucy glanced towards Oliver. This was entirely new. "Where did Amelia go?" Neil's eyes remained on the portrait. "To my flat." Nobody spoke. "She stayed for 3 nights." Marcus frowned. "Why yours?" Neil finally turned. "Because I was her godfather." The revelation was quiet, but it changed him immediately. Neil was not simply Arthur's employee. He had been family. "Arthur trusted me with Amelia from the day she was born," Neil continued. "I watched her grow up. I taught her to cook badly. I taught her to drive even worse. When she became a journalist, I was the first person she called after her first story was published. His voice faltered. And when she became frightened, I was one of the people she stopped calling. Lucy softened. Why? Neil looked towards the floor. Because she thought Arthur had told me to watch her. Had he? Yes. There was the flaw. Not villainy. Loyalty. Arthur had asked Neil to keep track of his daughter. Neil had agreed. Amelia had discovered it. She never forgave me, he said. Not properly. Lucy thought of the pressed flowers. Did she tell you about Belle? No. Vale? No. Kay? No. Did she tell you anything about what she was investigating? Neil hesitated. One thing. Oliver waited. Neil looked towards the laptop. She said there was a fourth person. Lucy felt the room go still. Henry said she told Helen there were 3 men. I know. When did she tell you? The week before she died. What exactly did she say? Neil closed his eyes, recalling it. She said everyone would look at the 3 men because they were the obvious connection. Belle and Vale, Kay. Lucy waited. And the fourth? Neil opened his eyes. She said the fourth person was the one nobody would notice because they never appeared to be part of anything. Oliver's expression changed. What did that mean? She wouldn't tell me. Man or woman? I don't know. Did Arthur know? Yes. How? I told him after Amelia died. Lucy felt her pulse quicken. 10 years of Arthur's investigation. 3 visible men, 1 invisible connection. Perhaps that was what Arthur had finally found. Lucy turned towards the laptop. 14 photographs. She began opening them one after another. M01, M02, M03, M04. Hotels, streets, fundraisers, court buildings, cars, people. She stopped at M05. Something familiar. Not a face. A shape. In the background of the photograph, partly hidden by a doorway, someone held a book. Lucy enlarged it. A flower protruded between the pages. Blue. Cornflower. Her breath caught. Oliver! Everyone gathered closer. The person remained mostly outside the frame. Only one hand visible. Part of a sleeve. The book. No face. Lucy moved to M09. Another event, another background figure. Again barely present. Again impossible to identify. But the same book. The same flower. Andrew whispered. The fourth person. Lucy opened M12. This photograph showed Amelia herself outside a cafe. Behind the glass sat a figure. Their face was obscured by reflection. On the table before them lay a book. A pressed blue flower visible between its pages. Lucy felt suddenly cold. Arthur had not used flowers merely because Amelia loved them. The flowers were a marker, a trail. He had been trying to identify someone who appeared repeatedly at the edges of Amelia's investigation. Someone she had noticed. Someone the photographs had almost failed to capture. Oliver stared at the screen. Can we enhance the reflection? Andrew shook his head. Not properly. Elliot could have. Lucy looked towards the empty space where Elliot should have been. Perhaps he had. Perhaps that was what he saw moments before his death. She searched the folder. No enhanced version. Then she remembered. The missing laptop. The missing camera. Possibly a second drive. The killer didn't take Elliot's camera because of Vale. Oliver looked towards her. No. They took it because Elliot enhanced the fourth person. The room seemed to understand simultaneously. Elliot had solved something, not everything. Enough. Enough to die for. Lucy stared at the final image. The blurred figure behind the cafe glass. The blue flower. The book. Then a terrible thought occurred to her. The flowers in the corridor. Helen frowned. What about them? They weren't Amelia's. Lucy turned. Not originally. Oliver understood. Someone copied the marker. Yes. Why? To make us look where they wanted. The murderer knew Arthur's system, not merely his conclusions, his system. That narrowed something. Lucy looked around the room again. Someone here had understood Arthur's investigation well enough to weaponize its clues. Someone had known the blue flowers mattered. Someone had taken Elliot's camera within minutes of his death. Someone had removed Helen's ring and Amelia's sketch. And someone had been inside Arthur's evidence long before any of them understood what they were looking at. Outside, the first drops of rain began striking the windows again. Neil looked towards the darkening sky. The tide. Lucy followed his gaze. What? It's coming back. The causeway had been exposed for hours. Nobody had arrived, no police, no rescue. Now seawater was beginning to reclaim the road stone by stone. Oliver crossed to the window. How long until it's covered? 40 minutes. Marcus stared. You said officers were coming. They were. Then where are they? Neil had no answer. The old telephone rang. Every person in the room froze. One ring, then another. Neil moved towards the hall. Oliver stopped him. I'll answer. He lifted the receiver. Ravensmere House. Lucy watched his face. At first confusion, then concern. Who is this? Silence from the receiver. Hello? Oliver listened. His expression changed. What do you mean? Lucy stepped closer. What? He raised one hand. The others gathered behind him. Oliver spoke into the telephone. Say that again. Whatever the caller said lasted only a few seconds. Then the line went dead. Oliver slowly lowered the receiver. Nobody spoke. Lucy felt dread before he explained. What happened? Oliver looked toward the windows where the sea was already beginning to creep across the causeway. That was the mainland station. And? They never received a call from Ravensmere House this morning. Neil stared at him. Yes, they did. Oliver looked towards him. No. I spoke to them. They have no record of it. Neil's face drained of color. That's impossible. They said their first contact from the island was 20 minutes ago. From who? Oliver swallowed. They don't know. Lucy felt the room become very still. What was said? Oliver looked around at every person gathered beneath Amelia Pembroke's portrait. Someone called them and said there had been a misunderstanding. He paused. They said everyone at Ravensmere House was alive and well. Nobody moved. Beyond the windows, the tide continued rising. The causeway disappeared beneath the sea. And for the first time, Lucy understood that their isolation had never been an accident of weather. Someone had been making sure it continued.